All right, good evening, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. Tonight, special night, we're going to go live on YouTube. Normally, our live casts go on Facebook because the tool we use is called Be Live. But we're going to go ahead and trial out YouTube because we're going to begin moving operations that direction. Tonight, we're going to talk about jobs. We're going to talk about the hierarchy of government and how money makes it through. We're going to talk about what the difference between a federal job guarantee is and what being able to have great public purpose spending on the 99% looks like, so that we can differentiate between really, really great jobs the federal government can create that have nothing to do with a federal job guarantee. So a federal job guarantee, it's probably important to start there. Federal Job Guarantee is a program that has been floated for a very, very long time by different people. You have had Martin Luther King Jr. talk about a federal job guarantee. You have had the Humphrey Act, which has been it's been in place forever, the full employment. Each of these ideas has been around for some time. However, pioneers such as Bill Mitchell of Australia, Warren Mosler, who came up with the idea of a buffer stock of employed people, tries to refer to this as a transition job or an employer of last resort. And it's very important to think about because most employers don't want to hire you straight off of the pine, straight out of being unemployed. Employers want to hire employed people. So federal job guarantee's goal is not to solve world hunger, although it does do a great deal of that. The federal job guarantee's goal is to eradicate involuntary unemployment. Now, this may seem like a crazy thing to you because the way that the government and the Federal Reserve and others try to dictate what unemployment actually is or is not. Unemployment is way, way more than what you see based on the numbers presented by our government, even with the adjusted rates. People have stopped looking for work. Many people are in a gig economy where they're taking one-offs here, one-offs there. That's not employment. That's not life. That's nothing. So what we're looking at with a federal job guarantee is to eradicate the people that have been taken out of the workforce with no prayer whatsoever of being able to find work. And this is a great opportunity for, think about this, women who have been out of the workforce for an incredibly long period of time, taking care of children in patriarchal society. They have been left behind. They all of a sudden want to get away from a bad situation, and the job guarantee gives them wings to fly. I think it's a beautiful thing. This is not a basic income. We can talk about that a little bit later, but this show is really not going to be about a basic income. The show is going to be talking specifically about the hierarchy of money, how money gets through various levels of government, and why, in particular, a federal job guarantee should be so appealing to the left and to the right. So one of the things I think is important to see is the very, very low voter participation rate in America. Most people don't think their vote counts. Most people don't think that anything that they care about is going to be represented as they go through the process of the electoral process, from running a campaign to speaking at town halls to writing letters to their congressman. They don't feel like anything's going to come from it. Most of them have basically given up on society, and they have said, you know what, I've got to take care of my own. But when we talk about a federal job guarantee, what are we actually talking about? We're talking about federally funded. In other words, the federal government would actually fund these initiatives. We're talking about locally administered. That means that the federal government is not the ones telling the local communities what to compensate and what not to compensate. And when we talk about local communities having control, the Green Party has a section of their platform, I think it's 835, that talks about local economies. Jill Stein, starting with the Green Party, talked about, instead of having an unemployment office on every corner, having an employment office on every corner. Take it a step further, and you see how the Democratic Party has literally punted. They've kicked the ball away. They haven't even addressed unemployment because they've been focusing on the people, the investor class. you have seen very little effort there whatsoever. However, of late, you've seen Stephanie Kelton, who is a world-class economist. She's Bernie Sanders' former campaign economist, lead economist, economic advisor. She was also the Senate Budget Committee's chief economist for the Democratic Party when Bernie Sanders was on that committee and led that committee. So we've had modern monetary theory, which is what Stephanie Kelton supports, working day and night trying to advance a federal job guarantee. Recently, Dr. Kelton was in Australia speaking with the Get Up movement, and she was able to contact them and talk to them about this program. The ironic thing is, and this is pretty sad as a commentary, Dr. Kelton is going into Australia where they have the original OG of the job guarantee, William Mitchell, who is Australian born and raised, Australian economist, and literally the father of the modern monetary version of the job guarantee, sitting right there in Australia. Wasn't really on the ticket. And lo and behold, the local media ran around talking about how the Americans have come to Australia and have brought this great thing called modern monetary theory, and have brought this great thing, the job guarantee. And God love Stephanie, and God love Pavlina, and God love all the American economists that are in the MMT community that work day and night to advance the job guarantee. But I would be remiss in allowing Bill Mitchell to go without mention and without getting the kind of credit he deserves. It's ridiculous, it's preposterous, and it's more of that American exceptionalism that we just can't seem to get away from, right? All right, so back to the locally administered for a minute. You know, there's a rock band in Sweden, and a very, very interesting article. I'm going to see if I can pull this up. Unfortunately, I don't have my split screen going. But bottom line is that there was a rock band in Sweden that got their start through a federal job guarantee of sorts, a state-based program, and their name is At the Gates. And the guitarist says development was aided by municipal help from the Swedish government. Basically, the Swedish government had decided that they were going to compensate the arts as part of their efforts to provide jobs. And, you know, we talk to people and they're like, well, automation's coming, Steve. There's not much point in, you know, advancing, you know, job guarantees. My God, automation is going to take over. And I look around and I say to myself, guys, I don't know if you've been in my community lately, but I know my community is not doing a lot of the things it needs to do simply because the local community is cash strapped, doesn't have money, doesn't have resources. The local communities are busy trying to keep up with federal mandates. The state communities are trying to keep up with federal mandates that they are not funded, unfunded federal mandates. And you say, well, Steve, you just said a federally funded, locally administered job guarantee. That's right. In my opinion, before we get way deep into this, I want to state for the record, federal government is the monopoly issuer of the US dollar. The federal government is also, or the country government of the UK and Japan and Australia, not the EU, not Germany, not Greece, but the ones that I rattled off, China, etc. Their state government is the monopoly issuer of the currency. They may bring into agency a central bank. They may bring into agency other banks to do public purpose work that they have maybe let go astray that are no longer serving the public purpose. But that does not take away the fact that the federal government, in particular the US, is the currency issuing entity, is the unit of account, is the US dollar, just like an inch, just like a meter, just like a decibel. You don't make it up. It's there. It's just a measure. It's just, hey, how tall are you? I'm $1 tall. That's what a dollar is. You've never actually seen a dollar. You've seen a representation of a dollar. But a dollar is a construct that the US government uses to provision itself. It's a tax credit. So when the federal government says we can issue money to the states and to the local communities to provide a locally administered job program, What they are in essence saying is that we can keystroke enough widgets, enough check marks, enough dollars for you to pay your local communities, the people in your local communities, to have a job, a federally paid job as a right, no matter what's going on. And we're proffering up that we would like to see a living wage. And some people have said as low as $15 an hour. Some people have said $18 an hour. Some people have said $30 an hour. I think that's probably a little excessive, but hey, man, whatever. We can talk about that. I'm not here to set the bar on that number. I'm here to lay out the way the money shifts, how the money starts, and how it gets down there. And I'm also here to talk about dreaming a better dream. I think it's important to be able to dream a better dream. I think it's very important to be able to see a future that is better than the future you were currently on. Because the future we're on right now is one of destitution, misery, and pain. There's no future the way we're going right now. And you'll notice something else too. In the current environment, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Sunrise Movement are fighting for climate change, but they're also fighting for green jobs. Now, I want to say this for the record. Green jobs don't have to be part of the federal job guarantee. In fact, green jobs can be higher paying jobs. They can be career jobs. The job guarantee is not intended to be the creme de la creme career move. It's intended to be the employer of last resort. And by being the employer of last resort, that puts you in direct competition with the military industrial complex, doesn't it? And you want to talk about starving the military, instead of doing a head-on collision, why not pick apart the people that are doing the dying and give them an opportunity to serve their local community instead? Think about it for a minute. All right. So a lot of people think that the federal government simply prints money. Well, we know that's not true. At least we people that follow modern monetary theory know that that's not true. But for the average person, people like Jimmy Dore, Lee Camp, and others, they tend to throw that word. They're just printing money. That's not how it works, right? The federal government has to actually write a bill through Congress, because Congress, constitutionally speaking, has the power of the purse, which is Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution. It has the sole authority to issue bucks, okay? So by having that power, when they sign a bill into law and the president signs it off and it goes, they send those instructions over to the Fed, and it says, hey, man, deposit X number of dollars into the Treasury's accounts. I said, oh, okay. Keystrokes those dollars into existence that were from that bill. They don't just randomly, hey, dude, print 2,800 bucks, man. We need more money. We need to print more money, homie. That's not how it works. So they go ahead and they put the amount of money in that's required to serve the needs of that program. And as that program requires more and more money, it puts more and more money in. And you know how it does it? It doesn't get you tax dollars. No. Keystrokes them in. Keystrokes them in. So the Treasury then disperses payments to wherever they need to go. So state of Pennsylvania decides that they want to have a job guarantee that pays for people to teach guitar lessons. They want to teach people how to rake leaves. They want to teach people how to read in spare time. They want to do tutoring. Or maybe they want to compensate stay-at-home moms. Maybe they want to compensate caregivers of other varieties. Maybe they want to provide a Big Brother program in their local community and want to compensate. Maybe they want to help compensate nonprofit work. Maybe they want to help activists. Maybe. But regardless, the local communities would vote on these things. Now, let me ask you a question. If you never cared about local politics before, and all of a sudden you knew that your local community was going to be selecting the jobs that they were going to be compensating, And the town halls were going to be designed to design the jobs that would be done in the local community. How many of you would participate in your local politics? I know I would. I know I'd want my kids involved. I'd want them to see what's available. I know I'd want everybody that I talk to be involved. And you know what happens when people get involved? Sure, you get more hands in the pie. Sure, you get corruption, all that stuff. We could talk about that in a different forum. But what you get is people that start having dreams about how they could do it differently. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a new level of democracy going on. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a new level of participation. People are getting the feel for what it means to serve the public purpose once again, to be a member of their community. Now, what could be better for a Make America Great Again kind of community? Apple pie and baseball, and going ahead and doing this stuff. But what could be even better? Let's just say hypothetically you're in Seattle, Washington, and you got Shama Sawant up there helping create the local jobs that serve the public purpose. Now all of a sudden you've got a whole new breed of really, really kick-ass progressive type jobs. And wherever progressives go, there'll be progressive work. And instead of luring people by lowering taxes to steal businesses from part A to part B, well, now you're talking about leveraging the best of our ideas, the best things we want compensated, and people can pick up and leave at a moment's notice. They can wake up one day and say, you know what? I am tired of living in Flint, Michigan. I'm tired of my water being freaking rusty brown and poison. I'm going to go to Colorado where the weed is green and the water is clean. And I'm going to go ahead and get a federal job guarantee with living wage and living benefits. On the fly, on the dime, in real time. That's what I'm talking about. That is complete freedom. That is mobility. And then let's just say hypothetically, you get down there to Colorado and you realize your real skills, the ones you really want to exhibit, they got a good, really good paying job in Colorado for you to take that job. Now, all of a sudden, you are being hired out from a position of being an employed worker as opposed to an unemployed worker. That is the power of a job guarantee. But why wouldn't you think the states would fund this? Why wouldn't you want states funding big, heavy programs like this? Well, states are not currency issuers, are they? States are dependent on the federal government or private banks. This is a very important distinction between the currency issuer and the currency user. You can think about healthcare in the same light. This is why state-based Medicare for all and things like that would be problematic. Because when the currency issuer runs out of money, all it means is they ran out of fingers to keystroke more money in because the money is freely generated. But what happens when a state, like the state of Pennsylvania where I'm in, runs out of tax dollars? Every state in the country, with the exception of, I think, one, have a balanced budget amendment. Most of these states have bonds and other things to save for a rainy day. But the fact is that these big programs easily could bankrupt the city, a municipality, even a state. Even a territory like Puerto Rico, huh? So when you look at the federal government, you think about its currency issuing power and what it could do. You can dream an incredibly beautiful dream. You can build a much better tomorrow. You look at things like the VA and you say, wow, why isn't it funded? Why the hell do they keep acting like the VA's broke? Why do they keep shortchanging the VA? Hey, Republicans, why do you keep shortchanging the VA? Hey, Democrats, stop talking about caring for our returning veterans. How about funding the freaking VA? But then what happens to those veterans after they come out of hospitals and they return? They don't have jobs. They don't have jobs, do they? They have a tough time reintegrating into society. But what if there was a federal job program available right on the fly, right then, right there, that could help returning veterans get back on their feet, provide an opportunity for them to serve their local community as opposed to taking bullets for the team abroad? Wouldn't that be something? So we talk a lot about a Green New Deal. And we talk about how we should have these green jobs. And I want to be clear. A federal job guarantee is intended to be the employer of last resort. It's the wage setter. It is the base of all wages, because if you can't meet or beat the federal job guarantee wage, then you've got a real problem on your hands, don't you? Because I wouldn't join your team. I wouldn't go work for you if I could do something I enjoyed for my local community for a living wage. Well, when you have people that have money to spend, they spend it. Most people don't sit there and save every nickel they make. A federal job guarantee, people will spend money in their local communities. They're showing up to work, they buy lunch. All of a sudden, the local establishments get money. It reinvigorates communities. So what about these green jobs, though? Do you want a green job, these new cutting-edge green jobs, to be covered under the federal job guarantee, knowing that that is the basement floor of work? It's not to say it's bad work. We're talking about a living wage. It's better than we got today. That's for damn sure. I'm talking about green jobs, though. I mean, you want the government to be able to directly invest in green energy because, folks, we got 12 years before major cataclysmic climate change starts striking us. So what do we do here? Let's just assume that we're not stupid and we find a way to mitigate the effects of climate change. And we can find really, really great green jobs. Those would be career level jobs. There would be a hierarchy. This isn't part of the job guarantee. And the idea in my mind, and this is something that good people can disagree on, I would like to see the federal government nationalize a lot of these jobs. I would like to see unions come back. I would like to see people have a competitive option, a public option for a competitive career with federal benefits tied to it, really, really good pensions, you name it. Really, really make it difficult for the private sector to skimp and really rake money off the top. What if we could do better? What if we could really, really raise the bar? I really want you to think about this. Because by doing this, you set up a real competition against the private sector. And what is the private sector's chief motive? Shareholder value, right? Which is a crock. Whatever happened to labor value? Whatever happened to worker value? Whatever happened to family value? Family values, right? Nah. But when you set up a counterbalance by high quality federal government jobs, what's the private sector going to do then? They're going to have to meet or beat those jobs too, right? They're going to have to do something to compete for that labor. It's not just they're begging for crumbs anymore. called using your smarts. It's called using that noodle. It's called thinking. It's called understanding the role of the currency issuer versus the currency user. Now, for those of you who don't understand all of what I'm saying, that's okay. You'll get used to it because I'm going to keep coming back with this more and more and more. But I want you to think about something else too. If your federal government has the power to provide a federal job guarantee for every state and territory, and it has the ability to provide free health care for all, and it spends that money into existence, where does that money go? It goes into the economy. And if you spend it at the bottom, it will work its way up. But if you spend it at the top and wait for it to trickle down, it's just going to turn into stock buybacks. It's just going to turn into an investment opportunity. It's not going to trickle its way down. Direct investment on the people is the way to compel a more fair and just society. And when you take away the desperation from the people, you immediately eliminate the wealthy basic income of interest investments, that non-productive work, those rents that they seek. You eliminate that because now all of a sudden your needs are being met. They can't capitalize on your misery anymore, can they? They can't make a buck on your cancer. No, but here's what the federal government can do. The federal government can invest heavily in STEM jobs where they get people. And I'm not talking about the private sector. I'm talking about direct investment in R&D to save people from cancer. Direct investment in green energy. Right now, folks, 12 years. Direct investment. So the job guarantee is the base floor. It eradicates, its purpose is to eradicate involuntary unemployment because in a free-floating sovereign fiat currency like the United States government has, it's not oil that backs it. Sorry, Jimmy. It's not gold that backs it. Sorry, Ron Paul. No, it's the tax. It's tax-driven money. It's an obligation payable only, for you Bitcoiners out there, payable only in the government's unit of account. Because when the government spends money, that's the birth of a dollar. And when it taxes it, it deletes it. That's the death of a dollar. A government spent dollar is spent one single time and one single time only. So I think it's really instructive to know and to think about, why would we want to reduce the deficit? Why would we want to reduce the debt? Why would we want to do all these things when the debt denominated in our own currency is not debt at all? It's just keystrokes. Taxes don't fund spending, people. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. Here's 1,001. Federal taxes do not fund spending, but let's get back to our states and our local municipalities. Taxes do fund them. So many states are struggling because the federal government has imposed what is called unfunded mandates. Mandates that the states and the local communities must meet to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's to receive funds. Maybe it's to participate in a program. Maybe it's just a law that you just have to do. A stick with no carrot. Eliminating all unfunded mandates allows the states to flourish, to be whole, to really, really focus on what they want their state to look like. And remember, Because of having the job guarantee, should we be able to pass such a thing? Unlike today, where people don't feel like there's any point in participating, tomorrow people will definitely participate. Who wouldn't participate? You'd have to be a fool to skip out on this. So now all those voters that have checked out of the system are checked back in. All those unemployed people are now employed. All those people living under a bridge now have an opportunity for real shelter. All those kids who have lived in domestic situations so horrible, you only see them in the documentaries that never make it to prime time. All those kids from The Wire, all of a sudden there's a federal job guarantee there to keep them from the school to prison pipeline. All the families that were in generational poverty, it's eliminated. What's that? You said something about a basic income guarantee? Well, let's talk about that for 2 seconds, because it's not going to work out for you when I tell you this. A basic income is basically Social Security. A universal basic income means that everybody unconditionally gets a certain amount of money. Now, a universal basic income is, in essence, status quo. It's just shifting zero somewhere else. There's no wage anchor. There's no price anchor. There's no nothing. It is runaway inflation. There's no real anchor to it at all. There's no productive capacity increase, but there is increased demand. It's a bad program. It's a neoliberal plot to eliminate the social safety nets in the FDR era. Believe me, libertarians have been begging to get rid of FDR. Republicans are now begging to get rid of every single reference to FDR possible. They want to get rid of the New Deal and make sure it never exists again. A UBI is a Trojan horse to do exactly that. So a basic income could be Social Security, though. A conditional basic income, which we could set the conditions. They don't have to be the conditions they are today. They could be different conditions. Because already Social Security does far more than serve the elderly. No, Social Security serves survivors' interests. Social Security serves the disabled. Because that's invariably the next thing that comes out of someone's mouth, right? What about the disabled? What about those that can't work? And you say, what about the people that can work, that want to work? I just sat there and told you, what if we could somehow or another compensate nonprofit work, volunteer work? What if we could compensate artists as part of the federal job guarantee program? There's a reason why we want it to be the federal job guarantee, not the other way around, because an employed worker has an opportunity to reinsert themselves into the private sector workplace should they so desire. But an unemployed worker, they're the hardest one to find a way to get back into the employment world. Trust me, unfortunately, I know too much about it. So, now that we've got that out of the way, what I'd like to do is ask you all to consider, if a referendum or a bill came through about a job guarantee, ask yourself, what are some of the things you'd like to see done in your local community? Next time you're driving down the road and you see paint peeling from a bridge and you see stuff going around, ask yourself, what kind of stuff would I like to see done in my local community? Think about that for a minute. Now back to the unfunded mandates one more time. There are 52, 54, 50, I don't know, depending upon the number of territories and how you lay it out, there's over 50 governors that serve the United States and our territories. 50 state-based ones, and Guam, Philippines, Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, etc. Imagine if those governors got together. I'm trying to give you a bit of activism direction here. What if those governors got together and demanded the federal government spent on them? What if those governors got together and said, we're tired of the race to the bottom. Let's serve our people. What if those governors got together and got rid of unfunded mandates as a block, and as presidents of their states and territories spoke out forcefully? You don't hear much about governors, do you? Governors do a lot of things, man. They shift voting districts. They have power you wouldn't believe. Why wouldn't they pull together to end unfunded mandates? Think about this. I think this is really an important, under-discussed area. I think that we as a block of people owe it to ourselves to educate ourselves. Find out how many unfunded mandates are in your state. Find out how many unfunded mandates are in your local community. And you want to make some hay, let's start picking them things apart. Because the federal government's the only one that's got money. It creates it at will. Why in the world will we put this on the backs of the people least able to afford it? Why would we do that? It's a question you got to ask yourself. And if we're against wars for oil, why wouldn't we invest in green energy? Let's get rid of it. And if we're for getting our kids out of the military, why not have a federal job guarantee so they can start their life without having to go sell their bodies for the death machine? And if we love the humanities and we love arts, why not compensate them in a federal job guarantee? If we value caregivers, why not prove it? Let's compensate it. Why not hit the rich where it hurts the most? And that's not taxing the shit out of them. That's taking away their basic income from our suffering. Let's pay for the people to have health care, to have a Green New Deal with a job program and lots of other good jobs for high-speed rail, solar highways. Folks, we can do all of this. Stop chasing gold coins in a fiat world, as Dr. Kelton once said. There's no need to play Robin Hood here. Let's kill the rich by taking away their spigot and spend money directly on the people. It's simple. Why in the world would you want your children strapping on $100,000 worth of debt before they get their first job? Let's end student debt. Let's create real reparations for affected minority communities that have suffered. Let's make people whole. Why not? We can do it. There's no excuse not to, other than ignorance. I'm here to tell you that we can do things you never thought possible because you've been limited by the idea that the national debt is going to kill us all. I'm here to tell you that if you can dream it, we can do it. I'm here to tell you that your future starts today. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a great day, everybody. I'm out.